No one also should know that later my grandmother spent 8 years in Siberia, in the prison camp in the 1930s. I remember that at school I had to lie to my teachers that my grandfather was killed by the Nazis during World War II on the front. Later, I realized that I was not alone in my lies. We were told that my grandfather died in 1942, and that was not true. In 1990, my father received permission to see the KGB archival on my grandfather's case, and he was accused of planning an assassination of comrades Stalin and Kaganovich, and was shot by the firing squad shortly after he was arrested in 1937. My father told me that I still had to be proud of my Soviet country, founded by a great man, Lenin, and that actually everything bad that happened before was a distortion of Lenin's ideas by an evil man called Stalin.
We compare it with Hitler. Hitler committed great evil, did not exterminate nearly as many people as did Stalin, who was Lenin's successor. Was not as ruthless toward the people of his own country, his own ethnic group, as was Lenin.
Part of the fanaticism was total disregard for human life. I don't think he was personally a cruel man, but he just was indifferent to human lives and human suffering. You know, if a few million people had to perish to create a new world, so what? That's how he felt. And you know, when sometimes people would plead with him to save such a person or another person, he couldn't understand why they bothered. I mean, it was just to him a matter of no significance at all.
We saw this in Lenin, the willingness to exterminate anyone whose political beliefs were not in consonance with his own. A total ruthlessness and a willingness to establish a system without any reference to any other views, which would reflect entirely his own political platform, his own ideology, and to impose this ideology on a whole people.
I don't know the numbers. No one knows. There are no records, no statistics, not even graves in many cases. I don't know how many people died for communism or against it. Millions. Lenin's disciples and opponents, comrades and enemies, murderers and victims. Victims of the great idea of brotherhood, liberty and equality. Was the price for the idea too high? Or maybe the idea was lost somewhere along the way. Maybe there was no idea from the very beginning. Then why? Why am I going to this Willimantic? Lenin died in January 1924, almost 7 years after the revolution. Great grief came to the young Soviet Republic. It was one of the coldest winters in Russia. Lenin's body was brought to Moscow in a crimson coffin. Men had carried it through the falling snow and bitter winds. From all over Russia, the people came to see the body. Lenin, immortal Lenin, was dead. There was no Lenin. Lenin was no more. Lenin's successors in power made the decision to rename Petrograd, the city of the revolution, as Leningrad, and to erect Lenin's statues in all the chief cities of the Soviet Union. Lenin's body was to be embalmed and placed in a gigantic mausoleum, so that all could see him as powerful in death as he was in life. Lenin became an icon for several generations of Russians.